Wait a minute, that's not right. A hometown hero defends his title, new #1 contenders start to emerge, and Mami goes on the shelf. And we ask a certain GM, what were you thinking? Back to our normally scheduled program, okay! In the news indeed. Back to our normal SmackDown Raw progression. For the match of the night on SmackDown, we had a triple threat match between Kevin Owens, AJ Styles, and Rey Mysterio. This would determine who would go on to one more match to determine the #1 contender for the WWE Championship. All three men brought their A-games with a fast-paced, hard-hitting affair. KO landed a triple stacked German suplex with both opponents who were on the turnbuckle. Now, I would maybe call that only a double stack, a German suplex with only two opponents, but Corey Graves called it triple stack, so that's what we'll go with. KO also later stunned Rey on the apron. However, Styles landed a huge avalanche Styles clash on Rey, crashing him onto Owens to get the pin. Now, I would say this is highly questionable to give AJ Styles an opportunity at becoming the #1 contender after he was just 0-4-1 in singles matches in 2024. However, he showed why he is a former champion and got his first win of any sort since January. For Owens, it was also surprising to see him get a promotion to the Universal Championship after losing the US title at WrestleMania, and this dropped him to 0-3 in multi-person single matches in 2024. For Rey, he was rewarded for his WrestleMania win, but he's now just 1-2 since returning in March. In our other triple threat match, earlier in the night we had LA Knight, Bobby Lashley, and Santos Escobar. This match had significantly less pace to it early on. Maybe these competitors weren't so used to each other. After the break, Angel Umberto came out per usual and attacked Knight while he was setting up for a BFT. And those two later joined Escobar to hit a triple powerbomb. Lashley attempted a spear on Escobar, but Escobar sidestepped. However, when he turned around, Knight was there for a BFT to get the win. Knight was one of our contenders for the championship, and he now improves to 6-3-1 in all matches in 2024. Bobby Lashley, who was another one of our contenders, apparently needs to be in one-on-one matches, as he's 3-0 in those types of matches, but when it comes to multi-person singles matches, he's now 0-3. Escobar wasn't on our Universal title list, he was on our US title contenders list, and he drops to just 3-4 in singles matches. Now, with Knight's win and Styles' win later in the night, we will see a WrestleMania rematch next week on SmackDown to determine the #1 contender to Cody Rhodes. In our other SmackDown matches, we had Bayley come out and attempt to offer the first shot at the title to Naomi, but a returning Tiffany Stratton interrupted her during her speech. Then Naomi came out and said she had to beat Tiffy first before she'd accept Bayley's offer. So, in a mostly back and forth match, Naomi capitalized when Tiffy missed a world's prettiest moonsault, and Naomi was able to roll her up and get the win. Naomi gets payback to Tiffy for losing to her on March 1st and now goes to 2-2 in one-on-one matches since returning. This will also be her first shot at the title. Tiffy, one of our title contenders, suffered her first one-on-one loss on SmackDown and is now 5-1. We also had Chelsea Green and Piper Niven take on Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair in a women's tag team match. If Chelsea didn't have enough of Jade on Raw, I don't know why she'd make a special trip to SmackDown to face her again. Of course, Aldis didn't tell her who she and Piper were facing before the match. This time, Chelsea lasted one additional move before she got jaded again. That drops Chelsea and Piper to 0-5 since winning the tag titles back in November. For Jade and Bianca, this was their first match as a two-person tag team, but it's their second win together once you count WrestleMania with Naomi. Lastly, we had a returning Cameron Grimes versus a returning Braun Breaker. Breaker, yet again, showed off his power and speed, making quick work of Grimes with a spear to win. Breakker, this was his first SmackDown match since March 1st, but he's now 3-0 on the main roster. Grimes, it was nice to see him return these past 2 weeks, counting the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, but he's now lost 8 matches in a row since his last win all the way back in May of 2023. Let's go beyond the mat, where we saw turmoil in the bloodline as a new member, Tama Tonga, blindsided Jimmy Uso as he and Solo Sikoa took no mercy on Jimmy, with Solo landing 4 Samoan spikes and then crashing his backside into a chair that he placed on Jimmy's head. Now, with the Tribal Chief out of action since losing to Cody Rhodes, it seems that Sikoa is now calling the shots on orders of the Tribal Chief, with Heyman being left unaware. We also saw in an early interview that Santos Escobar told Kayla Braxton that they did not attack Dragon Lee. But in a later interview, Rey Mysterio told Kayla that the LWO doesn't believe him at all. Lastly, we saw a quick video by Logan Paul where he called out Randy Orton in a pre-taped segment. So if this gets the Vipers' attention, perhaps we will see those two face off once again for the US title. And on Raw, we saw Sami Zayn return home to Montreal to defend his Intercontinental Championship against his former training buddy, Chad Gable. It was an emotional return for Sami as he walked in through the front door and through the crowd to get to the ring. And once the match started, there was some good early grappling, but Gable later caught Zayn in the top rope, causing Sami to tweak his left knee. Gable started working that knee, which really hindered Sami's movement. As soon as we returned from a commercial break, Gable landed an Olympic slam from the top rope. Somehow, Sami kicked out. The opponents then proved to know each other very well from their training sessions as they traded and countered each other's moves for several minutes, including a handful of German suplexes and standing switches. Gable was able to use the ankle lock twice to his advantage, but Zayn, even though writhing in obvious pain, refused to give in. Eventually, he got out of the ladder attempt, landed an exploder suplex, and hit a haluva kick for the win. Now, Gable initially showed good sportsmanship, raising Sami's hand after the match. However, while Zayn was celebrating with his family, Gable German suplexed him on the ring floor, then threw him into the post and put him in an ankle lock through the ropes to close the show. Now for Sami, this improves his record to 7-1 in his last 8 matches, all of which came since March 26th. For Gable, his last win was back in February, falling to 2-3 in 2024. We also had a triple threat tag match to determine the #1 contender for the new World Tag Team Championships between DIY, the Creed Brothers, and the New Day. Triple H and General Manager Pierce presented the Awesome Truth with new World Tag Team Championships prior to the match. Now apparently they want to keep the word world on the Raw titles and the word WWE in the SmackDown titles. So I would bet we'll see new WWE tag titles on SmackDown this upcoming Friday. This featured all 3 teams having a legal competitor in the ring at once, and it ended up allowing things to break down often, which allowed all 6 members to get into the ring at any one given time. After a flurry of action, with competitors from each team flying off of the top ropes, we saw Xavier Woods hit an elbow drop, but as soon as he got up, DIY was waiting in the wings to meet in the middle and pin him to become the new #1 contenders. For DIY, who is on our contender list, they are now back above 500 at 4-3-1, and they will get their 3rd title shot of 2024. For the New Day, they need to be in traditional tags, as they are now 0-3 in multi-team tag matches. They also were one of our contenders, so it was good to see them get a shot, but the other team, the Creed Brothers, was quite a surprise, as they dropped to 0-3 in tag matches in 2024. We had several other matches, including from the returning Sheamus, who battled Ivar. Despite a splash by Ivar from the top rope, Sheamus was able to land white noise, 10 beats of the bow run, a kneecap, and a brogue kick to easily get the win. This was Sheamus' first match since a loss on SmackDown in August, almost 8 months ago. Shockingly, his last win was in May of 2023. Now, I'm not exactly sure why he was on Raw instead of SmackDown, but with the draft coming up shortly, I guess it doesn't matter too much. For Ivar, he's now lost 6 matches in a row since winning a tag team match versus the Alpha Academy in February. And speaking of the Alpha Academy, Maxine Dupree and Ivy Now yet again faced Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae. This match unfortunately was lost by the ref, flat out. He didn't see Ivy tag in and he stopped her from continuing to fight. Indy appeared to get on the same page as Candice finally after several weeks of dissension, and she landed another big boot on Maxine, knocking her out much in the same way that she did the week before. She dragged Candice on top of Maxine to get the pin and get their win back from their loss before WrestleMania. Indy and Candice are now 2-1 in this rivalry and 4-4 overall in 2024. For Ivy and Maxine, they've only been together for these 3 matches, so they're 1-2. We also saw Andrade versus Dominic Mysterio. And after the commercial break, Dom landed a devastating Canadian Destroyer on the apron. I think everyone thought the match was going to be over after Dom hit that move, but he did have to drag Andrade back into the ring to be able to get the pin, gave Andrade just enough time to kick out, and after Andrade countered a 619, he delivered the message to Dom to get the win. Not surprisingly, McDonough and Dom both attacked Andrade from behind after the match, but this time Ricochet came in and saved Andrade. For Andrade, since the Royal Rumble, he's now 4-0, including his WrestleMania win. For Dom, he's now 0-5 in singles matches, with his last win of any sort coming in January. Chelsea Green finally got away from Jade Cargill, and she and Piper Niven took on Carter and Chance. Chelsea got a big assist from Piper, who threw Chance with a fall-away slam and then landed a crossbody on Carter while she was trying to pin Chelsea. This allowed Chelsea to roll up Carter for the victory. Chelsea and Piper are now finally on the board in 2024 at 1-4. For Carter and Chance, their bad luck continues, and they have not won since dropping the tag titles in January at 0-5. Lastly, Jey Uso took on Finn Balor. Balor attacked Jey from behind before the bell when he didn't come out through the entrance. And he continued to grind Jey down with several strikes and holds early on. But Balor later missed a coup de grace attempt that left him open for Jey to land a spear and then an Uso splash to get the win. Of course, Dom and JD again attacked after the match as Jey was distracted by Priest, who was staring him down. Fortunately, Jey was able to escape through the WWE Universe. Jey, our #1 contender, now has won 5 straight matches since March 25th. For Balor, he's mostly focused on the tag titles, as he even told Priest earlier in the night, but in singles matches, he's now 0-3 in 2024. Let's go beyond the mat for Raw. First, Cody Rhodes confirmed that he's now a SmackDown superstar, which we greatly anticipated, but at least he confirmed it. Bronson Reed also told Chad Gable right before his IC title match that he is coming for whoever the IC champ is, and admittedly, as we showed on our contenders list, Reed deserves this shot. Strangely, the WWE production team needs to look into glitches they keep seeming to have on the shows ever since WrestleMania. This time, it even looked like a QR code got in there somehow. I know this team is normally top-notch, So I have to assume they're going to get this straightened out as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the big news of the week was that Rhea Ripley had to open the show by saying that she needed to vacate the title after 380 days as champion due to a shoulder injury that she suffered last week when Liv Morgan threw the chair at her and then threw her shoulder into a wall. It was such a terrible attack last week that we talked about. It should have been a 1-week suspension, and looking back at it now, it seems like I should have made it a full month suspension. Unfortunately, Rhea is now going to be out of action for several months as she heals. Both Liv and Nia had backstage interviews saying that they're going for the title. Well, in our opinion, only one of them deserves a shot. Unfortunately, that does lead us right into who's next? Wow, I can't even believe that I'm showing this exact same slide again already. But with Rhea's injury and vacation of the title, that's exactly where we're at. So here's that same slide. We have Becky on top, we have Nia second, and we have Raquel third. They announced near the end of the show that a new world champion would be crowned next week. So let's hope that it's just a one-on-one match between Becky and Nia for that title. We need to keep Liv as far away as possible right now. If Becky's not available, let's hope that it goes to the third contender, Raquel. And if she's still not available, the next contender will be Candice LeRae. Wow, she is 1-0 in one-on-one matches in 2024. And that somehow is the best record that we have among all of the Raw women. Candice at least has a fairly decent record in all matches, being 5-6 overall. The only other two Raw women that have a singles win in the entire year so far, and we're in the 4th month, mind you, are Ivy, who is 1-2, and Liv, who's 1-3. So under no circumstances should Liv get any sort of shot for the Women's World Championship. Along those same lines, let's now go on to what were you thinking? This week, we're not crashing into anything or falling off of anything. We're gonna stay right here and say, Adam Pearce, what were you thinking by letting Liv Morgan in the building? How could you let her anywhere close to the ring when Rhea's there solely to vacate her title? I mean, you literally let an injured 380-day champion stand out there with a hurt shoulder just to let Liv be anywhere she wanted in that building when you weren't even looking at her, keeping any tabs on her. You were standing in the ring, looking at Rhea. So you had no control under what Liv had in her mind. And sure, you may have had a couple security guards out there, but Liv, of course, easily got past them and made her way out to the ramp, provoking Rhea, as she always seems to do on her Liv Morgan revenge tour. Rhea was both emotional and at her most vulnerable, and you made it possible for her to get hurt. Now granted, Rhea somehow, even with this hurt shoulder, was the one doing the hurting when she headbutted one of the security guards, but she should never been in that situation. It was a complete and utter catastrophe and a dereliction of duty. So Adam Pearce, I just can't believe it, but what were you thinking? And with that, let's go back to Sports Zoo for the OK question of the week. Doc, here's your OK question of the week. Why do we keep having a Backlash premium live event? I looked at your contenders list, and they seem to pretty much all be rematches from WrestleMania. But based on this week's shows, we might not have a single rematch at all. So why do they call it this? Yeah, I don't get it, Sports Zoo. I mean, a backlash is like a sudden, violent, backward movement. So if you're not doing anything from WrestleMania that's the same, you're not really making any movement back towards your opponent from it. So you've got nothing to lash back to. I don't really get it. I mean, last year in 2023, when they went to Puerto Rico, it was pretty much the same thing. Not a single direct rematch. The closest was that our new tag champions at the time, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, they teamed with Matt Riddle to take on the Bloodline, which of course included both Usos at the time, and also Solo Sikoa. So 4 of the 6 competitors were the same, but, you know, not directly the same. Now if we go to this year, unless Gunther hurries up and decides to show up again and take a rematch, it looks like we're not going to have one this year either. Now based on SmackDown this past week, we may get Logan Paul and Randy Orton, which is just one competitor off from the triple threat match that we saw for the US title at WrestleMania. But again, not quite the same. If we go a little further away, of course, we have now DIY contending against the Awesome Truth, and both of them happen to be in a 6-pack ladder match, but obviously those two haven't battled one-on-one for the title yet. Same thing on SmackDown. Maybe they will go against someone who happened to be in the 6-pack ladder match, but we don't even know that much yet. Nonetheless, we're staring at no direct matches to lash back to. So with that, maybe let's call the Backlash PLE anything else. I mean, we're going to France this year. Maybe we can call it the Tussle at the Tower. I don't know. Kind of like Clash at the Castle. I think it would work, right? Anyways, that's our okay question of the week. And as always, let's end with the STFs. First on SmackDown, relatively quiet night, except for the Bloodline was out in full force. We had the new member, Tama Tonga, link up with Solo Sikoa to brutally beat down Jimmy Uso. Sikoa hit 4 Samoan spikes and also crashed a chair into his head. For that attack, we're going to have to give both of them a 1-week suspension. And then on Raw, we did see Drew McIntyre kick down a TV. For that loss of equipment, we're going to have to give him a fine. The rest of it is all Judgment Day. Per usual, JD and Dom were up to their old tricks, and they first both attacked Andrade after Dom lost to Andrade. So Dom and JD, for this attack, they're getting a fine. Then we saw Finn Balor take on Jey Uso later in the night, and Finn attacked Jey before the bell. And then after the match, all 4 men of the Judgment Day teamed up to try to attack Jey. Priest first set the trap by walking out and staring Jey down in anticipation of the upcoming title match. But, of course, JD and Dom attacked Jey from behind, and then Balor joined in. So, all 4 of these men from the Judgment Day are also getting a fine. Pretty impressive when 3 of the 4 members managed to get 2 fines in one night. Lastly, unfortunately, and I hate to do it, we have to give a 1-week suspension to Mami for her headbutt on a security guard. While she was clearly and rightfully provoked by Liv Morgan, it's just never acceptable to attack a non-contracted WWE employee. So, tough one for the security guard. Rhea can take her 1-week suspension next week. She's not going to be there anyways due to her injury, so it really doesn't amount to much. Nonetheless, that's this week for STFs. We saw several great matches this week of consequence, including an amazing title defense by Sami Zayn in his hometown. And we also saw a bunch of #1 contenders be named, or at least be close to being named, with Knight versus Styles in a WrestleMania rematch set for next week. Unfortunately, however, this week is really about one thing: the loss of our Mami, Rhea Ripley, and her 380-day title reign. And unfortunately, it was due to such an unnecessary and brutal attack by Liv Morgan. Now, I thought it was worse from the beginning with a chair being thrown into the back of her head, but it was the continuation of throwing her shoulder into the wall. I really just am heartbroken for this loss. Rhea was at the top of her game. She had cleared out just about everybody on Raw, and we were about to get to a draft where we could have seen a fresh group of opponents battle her for the title. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see any of that for the next several months. So Mami, here's the hoping you get well soon. So I'm Dr. O'Kay, reporting on the WWE, where unfortunately, everything is not very okay.